Welcome to the Freddie Kissoon Show. All I'm saying, next time, bring the evidence. All you do, you come here, corruption. Just here. Next time you come here, bring your I am not talking about that. I'm talking about you in 2024, December, saying there's corruption. Bring it.
Let me ask you this question. I would like to ask the AG to propose legislation for what we call small claims court. There are lots of poor people, to an example you just gave, that they have issues with others and sometimes with large firms, but the lawyer fee is greater than the fee you're claiming.
It is their right. Unlike the right that someone has, all of our rights exist in context.
What's the context of a second medical opinion?
Because you're disrespecting the process.
No.
Jesus, this is common sense, man.
Any situation which you seem to do, you're just dealing with Afro-Guyanese issues. If one, you can't bring and pull the leaders of the African community together, you're failing. And if two, you can't put forward a future, a blueprint, and a plan for African Guyanese, you're failing as well.
A pleasant evening to you. This is the Freddie Kissoon Show with co-host Leonard Craig. Just to remind you, 2 weeks ago we completed 3 consecutive years of this program. We're on the lawns or the gardens of a guest over the past 2 years who has never hesitated in accepting our request, and so he's one of 7 persons that have a blank check on this program. They can come anytime because they have made this show possible. Now, over the past 2 weeks, there's been an exchange between 2 prominent citizens who are household names in Guyana. That political exchange took place in the Starbook News. These 2 men belong to different political perspectives vis-a-vis Guyana, and that is Mr. Christopher Ram and Mr. Christopher Kit Nascimento. It started when Mr. Ram wrote a letter 3 Sundays ago in the Starbook News in which he definitively and assertively said Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali should not be re-elected as president. There was an equally strong reply by Kit Nascimento in which the main point of Kit's response was, look, you have not supplied facts in your perspectives. It's just assumptions, meaning Kit was saying that, look, I believe he did this, I believe he did that. Then on Father's Day, we interviewed Mr. Ram. Leonard Craig and I interviewed Mr. Ram at his office on Waterloo Street. And we brought up a letter that very day, that Sunday on Father's Day, in which Mr. Ram got personal with Leonard Craig and very personal with Mr. Nascimento. And Mr. Ram brushed it off and said, look, there's nothing wrong with me and Kit, I'm his lawyer. And if you be suggesting to young intellectuals, we're suggesting to people, young people who want to get into politics, people who are going to get into civil society organizations and do work to make society better, and to the ruling politicians. We're suggesting you look at Mr. Ram's Father's Day reply to Kit Nascimento, and then look at Kit Nascimento's reply on Saturday. This is an interesting intellectual political debate that exposes a lot and says a lot about who we are in this country. After that Father's Day interview, which was broadcasted Monday, we never thought that Mr. Ram would get even more personal than he did in his letter, in his Father's Day letter. Now, let's look at maybe the disappearing friendship between two men who have been friends a very long time. I'd like to read a few lines of Kit's response to the Father's Day personal attack by Christopher Ram on Mr. Nascimento and the co-host Leonard Craig. Let me read this, then I hand over immediately to Leonard Craig. Here I go. As I write this letter, I received an email from one of Mr. Ram's legal clerk with an attachment of a filing in the Supreme Court registry notifying the court that Mr. Ram has withdrawn as my attorney as a defendant in a case against me for defamation from former President David Arthur Granger. Mr. Ram never had the courage to discuss nor consult with me before acting. Can you imagine that? This is one household name saying this about another perennial critic of the government. Mr. Ram never had the courage to discuss nor consult me before so doing. It is pellucid that Mr. Ram's Father's Day letter, Sunday, June the 15th, is written by an angry man over the fact that I dared to challenge him. Quite frankly, his angry letter has come as a surprise to me. Anyone who writes in the accusatory manner he has adopted must surely be able to take criticism and disagreement in their stride and not seek to respond in the manner of Mr. Ram. Given this appalling behavior by Mr. Ram, I believe that whatever else he says in his letter deserves nothing but contempt. Leonard Craig.
Yeah, I agree with the last statement. Welcome, viewers. The letter indeed has to be treated with contempt because the letter replies to an analytical perspective, but I consider my article on the, which is a separate issue, by the way, my article to be analytical, and I consider Mr. Nascimento's letter to be analytical. And in response to that, all Ram did is mention that these people support the government and they're singing for the supper. And he used the term otherwise unemployable. And throughout his letter, that is all he did. He did not respond to the points made. He did not articulate any additional views to back up what he said. All he simply just dismissed our analytical views as people. So, in other words, what Ram is saying, only people who have a view against the Irfan Ali government has a point and not singing for the supper. And everybody else must be just dismissed as looking for money, you know, scraping the bottom of a pot. Mr. Nascimento, how do you just summarize for us your feeling and your response to what myself and Freddie just said?
Well, first of all, let me thank you and Freddie for asking me to come on this program. I've been on it, as Freddie pointed out, on a number of other occasions. And I gave serious consideration to whether I should come here at all. And the only reason I really did is that Chris not only has used the platform of the Stabrook News, but now he used this platform to really launch a very personal and insulting attack on me as a person, for which I was totally astonished. I think it's important that our listeners, who probably have a minimal interest in Chris Ram and Kit Nascimento having a quarrel, but it goes well beyond that. It goes to the issue of prominent persons taking political positions in an election year and expressing views which are strong. But Chris Ram expressed the strongest view I've seen so far by anyone, telling the people of this nation that they must not vote for Dr. Muhammad Ali. He does not deserve, according to Chris Ram, to be our president. That is a hugely arrogant, pejorative, and almost, I would say, ugly statement to make without supporting it by a fact. Purely presumptions. His opinions based on very flimsy grounds. So I therefore sought to disagree with him publicly. So having said all of that, I think it's important for our listeners to understand the relationship that Chris and I had. And I say had. Chris and I go back many, many years as friends and as professional colleagues. Chris, when I first established my company, my public relations company, worked as my accountant and as my company's auditor. He wasn't a lawyer in those days. I, in turn, have been engaged by Chris to handle the public relations of his company on many different occasions. Chris has helped me with auditing the books of the Ghana Rugby Football Union, of which, as you know, I was once president, and I'm now the patron. Chris is generally a generous person. But Chris Ram has sought to become a public critic in politics. And as you've said, because I disagreed with him, which is all I did, I disagreed with him on his political positions. I didn't attack him. I didn't launch a pejorative attack on him personally, which he did to me. I was actually totally astonished at his response. One, because whom I thought he was, and two, because I thought it was totally improper. He not only attacked me on a personal basis, he insulted me. He accused me in the press of betraying our friendship. And then, as you pointed out, suggested that the only reason that I'm defending the president is because I'm singing for my supper, which of course is ridiculous. This though astonished me, it actually hurt me. And I thought 3 or 4 times, maybe 10 times before I wrote that letter that Freddie has read to our listeners. But it's important, I think, that we examine the difference between myself and Chris. Chris is an accountant and a very good one. That's his career. He audits many books of many important companies in this country. He studied at a rather old age to do this and become a lawyer.
Yeah, he was at UG when he was in his 60s. Yeah.
Yes.
Like that's a distinction. He's probably the oldest lawyer to graduate in Guyana.
And he's a young lawyer as lawyers.
Right.
He's still learning the trade. But when David Granger decided, because I was very critical of his heading both the party and the government that sought to rig the last election, he sued me for defamation, which is still in the courts, languishing in the courts actually. Chris picked up the phone. He said he would offer his services to defend me. And I said, certainly, Chris, most welcome. So that is why, of course, I'm now utterly astonished at what he's done. But who is Chris Ram?
Let's hear who's Chris Ram. To our viewers, here was analysis by one of Guyana's most enduring personalities talking about the controversial Chris Ram. Kit, who is Chris Ram?
He's an accountant, he's a lawyer, and he's nothing else.
Well, he admitted to us on the program that he's a perennial government critic.
He is.
So you have to give him a title that he claimed for himself.
Well, that is a self-appointed,
Yeah.
self-labeled
Mm-hmm.
person. Chris has never done anything, I think, either constructive or useful for the development of this country in specific terms. He's a good citizen. He has sought on occasions to organize civil society groups, which failed, to oppose, as I've said in my letter, all governments. He obviously doesn't like any of the governments this country has ever had.
That's because Ram is not featured in any of them? Could that be it?
It could be. I think Chris had, at some stages in his life, ambitions to be perhaps invited to be a Minister of Finance. I can't say that for certain, but that is the sense I had when we were friends.
Well, I've heard that from two persons who I think are well placed.
Well, there you are. But the difference between Chris and myself is this. He's a private citizen who has sought to become a public commentator on politics. The Stabroek News has given him a platform to do so.
An excessive, large, colossal platform.
Indeed, for no good reason that I can see. I, on the other hand, have devoted a great part of my life to working for the development of this country. I was once a minister in the government. I have been an advisor to 4 of our presidents and worked closely with them. I am today, as we sit here, heading a committee that deals specifically with Venezuela's claim on the Essequibo. I devote a great deal of my time to that. I sit on the executive of the Private Sector Commission. I work for the development and progress of our nation.
The past 18 years.
Yes. Chris has not raised a finger to do that. That is the essential difference between us.
It's a big difference. A man advises 4 presidents, was a former minister, has a large public relations firm that advises the private sector, the government. Whatever one may want to say about you, I mean, your curriculum vitae is longer than the encyclopedia. But before Craig comes in, I want to get your opinion on this, and you may not have one, or you may say you don't know. I find Christopher to be a person who has a phonetic willingness to be very technical. For example, he sat for many years in the executive of the WPA, helped to finance the WPA. And then he said, I was never a WPA member, Deconstructing that, it's nonsense. Now, I asked him if he is, in the interview, I asked him if he is a shareholder in Starbucks. He said no. But I'm wondering if I made a mistake, and I should not have asked. Is the company Ram and McClay shareholders of Starbucks? Or is it anyone related family member? Because if it's Ram and McClay, Ram is going to split here and say that's a private company, a legal entity. Chris Ram has no shares. I'm asking you, Kit, that kind of platform that Starbucks provides him with every day, lead letter, he can write a column. I've never seen that, and I'm not that young, in any newspaper. Does Raman McClay have shares in Starbucks?
Well, you make an interesting point. He's not a journalist. Yet he has become a journalist by virtue of the fact that the editor of the Starbucks News has provided him with a platform to express his views. As far as I know, he does not have any shares, but I don't know.
But what about the company, Raman McClay?
That I don't know either. I would doubt it.
Well, that's an uncanny relation, man. You've been in newspaper business in the media for 50, 60 years. From the time of the 60s until now, 2025, even in the state media, no one has that latitude.
Well, the Starbucks News was founded by David Takeri.
Yeah.
David Takeri is my second cousin.
Yeah.
David and I go back a long way too. And David Takeri had to be significantly admired in that he founded that paper with some hostility from the government of his time, who did not welcome an independent private press. And I would say this of the Starbucks News, that it is perhaps the most credible, generally, of all of the media, in that it is still, I think, independent. Now, what does one mean by an independent press? Essentially what it means is that that newspaper or the media, like this program, for instance, is independent of any government control or financing. And I think it's fair to say that that is the case where the Starbucks News is concerned. It is owned and operated by a relatively wealthy family and has never sought government financing. As a matter of fact, there was an occasion when the government of the day withdrew its advertising from Starbucks News, which is not new. The American government has done that with the press from time to time. So that is not new in a democracy. Governments on the whole don't like criticism in the press of any kind, whichever government it is in any democracy in the world. They're not happy with criticism. But that is the nature of being the government. The population have the right, and the media have the right, to criticize the government once it's fair, reasonable, and not libelous or defamatory. What is unusual, which you pointed out, is that a private citizen who's not a professional journalist
Gets so much
and has
latitude.
no career in that respect is suddenly been given pages of several news to write on.
Some of his columns are part 9 to 5, so which means 9 to 5 columns. He would say part 9 to 5. Now we start another section and it's part 15. I mean, it's a deluge. I've never seen it in any newspaper before.
But let me be clear, I am not criticizing, and I don't wish to attack the personality of Chris Ram. I regard him as a decent man. I regard him as a generous man. I happen to know he's a very wealthy man.
Yeah, well, he told Craig and I that.
Certainly by my standards, he's a very wealthy
Yeah,
man.
he said that off the camera.
And but he uses his money to good causes. He helps people. He's helped the rugby union, for instance, and he supports sport generally. So he's a good citizen. He's a decent citizen. But I think that he doesn't understand that if you're going to enter into the politics, you're getting into the kitchen. And if you get in the kitchen, you got to take the heat.
Sorry, Leonard. Just one thing. I mean, this man's an encyclopedia. I just want to put something here. Is it possible when someone becomes so wealthy and they become a household name and they do this and they do that, there's a creeping narcissism, or there's a creeping, you know who I am? And that person reacts when someone says, but you're wrong, because there's a psychology of, you know who I am? I can't be wrong. I'm indispensable.
And you add to that,
Could that be the case with
how
Ram?
dare you criticize?
Yeah. I am beyond reproach, you know who I am?
And I think you've summed that up very well. That I think is his frame of mind. So he got angry when I sought to put him in his place and point out how wrong he is in presuming to say that the president of this country has no business being re-elected.
But you can see the you know who I am content in that letter, because he just went personal with you and Craig. And I think the reason for that is, one, you said, look, this man is saying about the president and I ain't seeing the facts. It's just an assumption. I assume he did this. I assume he did that. And then Craig said, this guy's quoting from a document that he doesn't understand. I think that was too much for Ram.
Chris?
Leonard?
Yeah. And when I read Ram's letter, I felt it was quite unfortunate that was coming from him, because as Mr. Nascimento just said, he sometimes writes very good pieces in the Stabrook, very good analytical pieces with figures and facts. So one would know that Ram understands that to present a cogent topic, you have to present facts. Even on our program, Freddie, he said when he was releasing some article, he missed one figure and he called the editor and said, man, can I submit this thing tomorrow? And the editor said, yes, come on, because he wanted some extra time to verify some figure and facts.
Because he's writing on finance.
Right.
Which is his
Forte.
Exactly. So I am appreciating the fact that Ram understands that to come at somebody or to come at any topic, that it has to have cogent facts in it. And it should not be limited to finance. It should be limited to his political commentary, which you quite so eloquently dealt with him about. That, hey, look, you got suppositions here and you haven't brought any facts to say here. Because of facts number one and because of figure number 2 and 3, I can then conclude that Irfan and make it. But you know,
I actually presented facts.
right, and he just came back again instead of correcting a fact or you know, boring holes in your argument. He came back with a personal attack.
And then let's not, sorry to interrupt you, let's not miss an important fact. That Chris Ram, in his response to me, said that he wasn't going to vote.
Right, right.
Which is the most irresponsible thing any man can do, any man or woman. Every citizen in this country, in any country, has a responsibility to cast his vote, to make a choice of what's before him. Not making that choice is a cop-out. It is a cowardly act, in my view. You may not like any of the presidential candidates. You may disagree in one way or another with all of them in certain aspects, but they are the ones before you. So make a choice, for God's sake. Do the right thing.
But to his credit, though, when I pushed back on that, he said he is persuadable. So
He didn't say that in the press.
well, he said that in our program.
Well,
so I figure the door is probably still open.
But kids' exposure here needs to be emphasized. I mean, people in this country have disagreements, and because of their maturity and intellectual standing, they would sit down at a cocktail or they would say, I saw you wrote this letter about Minister Smith. You can't be serious, man. That man is one of the worst ministers CARICOM has ever had. And you would say, no, I know Smith. But you can't disagree with someone. The two of you, look at your standing. And this man sent a note saying, I'm no longer representing you. No, man, that betrays a Freudian mind to me. Okay. That betrays a Freudian mind.
I listened to the program with Chris on it, and he dodged your questions.
Oh, many questions he didn't answer.
He wouldn't answer.
He didn't answer the Adrian Young thing. Was this tragedy politicized? He said, I did two advertisements in it. I didn't know what.
If you ask me about that, I'll answer it.
I asked him, I said, man, how can you? The man is your friend. The man said, no sarcasm, Christian, my friend. You can reply and said, with friends like that, the songs like Itu Bute.
That was savage.
Then he went on to say, I actually betrayed the friendship. How have I betrayed our friendship?
No, I think Christopher Ram, the Nascimento exchange has, I don't know how Craig feels. I think it has dented Christopher Ram.
And Freddie, I make mention to you several times that I believe that too many people in Guyana are thin-skinned. Too many people, especially those who want to comment. You come out in public, you want to sway public opinion, left or right, and you want to be an opinion maker. And in being an opinion maker, you've got to, you more than anybody else will take a lot of criticism. You want to see on our Facebook the comments on our program. You want to see that people say about me. You want to see the thing people say about Freddie. And
we are dinosaurs.
We understand that we are public opinion makers, and these are the people. There are some people who got nothing else to do.
People disagree with what you write, Freddie, every day of the week. And they have a right to do so, providing they don't insult you, provided they don't defame.
They even do that.
But Chris, let me tell you this. I grew up very hard in Waterman. I'm not a very emotional man. But I was stunned when you told me the man withdrew service, because in the interview, the man said, I am his lawyer. And throughout
Which was a lie.
throughout the
Because
interview,
he'd already put that into motion.
but throughout the interview, the man is saying to the public, we must be harmonious in our
Yeah, we must
relations,
talk.
even
Yeah,
though
yeah.
we
Yeah,
must
yeah.
respect each. So the whole program, the whole basis of his emanation then, to use a strong word, was deceptive. Because if you look at this 1 hour interview, Christopher Ram is telling the two interviewers, I think we've got to be civil in this country. You know what's the problem with this country? We're just intolerant. And there you go.
The reason
There you go on Father's Day.
The reason
An intolerant letter.
The reason he gave the court was irreconcilable differences.
Oh, you didn't say that?
No, I haven't. I'm
So-
telling you now.
So Christopher Ram informed the court that he can no longer be Christopher Nascimento's lawyer because of irreconcilable differences
That's the reason.
over a letter.
And
That's the reason
and
he
he
gave.
told us that he called
he's
you
bitter, he's
and
bitter.
he let you know that he's going to write savagely against you, and you told him, that's okay.
I'm asking you, Christopher
So,
Nascimento, 94-year man who has served Guyana over more than 60.
Not yet 94.
Not 93 plus. Well, I know you don't like the
about
high
4
age.
months away.
4 months away.
4 months.
I'm asking you straight. Has Kit Nascimento's credibility has taken a hit
No, I don't think so.
with what has happened here?
In my view, I think that
Hasn't
Chris-
taken a hit?
I think that Chris has hurt himself.
Well, that's a splitting ears. If he's hurt himself, he has to hurt his credibility.
No, yeah, I think you put the question different. You ask him if Nascimento credibility took a hit.
Who's
You mean,
Nascimento?
That's what
you mean if
asked me.
Rams?
You
that
asked,
is
you
why.
asked me if my
Chris, I'm older than you, so forgive me. I'm older than you, and I think Alzheimer's
You older than
Alzheimer's coming on. I mean to ask you straight up, looking
Oh.
at the camera. Has Christopher Nascimento,
Christopher
has
Rams.
Ram's
Credibility.
credibility, given the back and forth with you and the level he went to, wouldn't you say for all the years this one has dented his credibility?
Well, that is in the public judgment.
Mm.
But I would guess that it has. Not for what he writes, not for the fact that we've had a disagreement, but his behavior towards that disagreement.
Freudian instincts,
He's behaved like a spoiled child.
or an arrogant, pompous person who says, "You know who I am."
He picked up his wickets and he walked away with
Yeah,
them
yeah.
because he's losing
Remember,
the game.
Yeah, remember small days cricket, Freddie? You
But
played cricket?
but Kit,
Right.
but Kit, he's a perennial, colossal critic of the Irfan Ali government. There must be PR people at Freedom House and then the PPP are saying, look, this is the man who says government ministers are arrogant or unaccountable. We have 2 months before the election and he may come in for some licks.
Well, probably will. I don't think that the president takes Chris Ram seriously.
I gotta cut you. Sorry, but I just have to tell you this. And you would know this from being one of the Caribbean's leading PR persons. We inbuilt into these social media programs are the viewership. It's inbuilt. You just like television, you know how much views the program got. Kit, 10 hours the morning, the program broadcast finished at 9:30. At 12 o'clock, we see the amount of viewers.
Right.
At 12 o'clock, Christopher Ram had 22,000 viewers.
Excellent.
The week before, you would think this is Christopher Ram. The numbers would go through the roof. The week before, says Gunraj, 10 hours after that, Christopher Ram had 44,000.
There you go.
A month before Leonard Schumann, 12 o'clock the morning after the show, had 65,000 viewers. You know, sometimes we build up people
What is the maximum viewers you had?
around 70 plus, but
We had 100 and something for some programs.
For some programs,
do
yes.
you remember some? Yeah.
the debate over Adriana with the head of the Anug,
I can assume.
controversial people like Charandas saying he's back into politics. But for Christopher Lamb, for who people think Christopher Lamb is, the morning after it stood at 22,000 in comparison to many others whose name are not as big as Christopher Lamb. But go on. I'm cutting you too often. Yeah.
I'd like to chime in with a little question here. You've been in the public relation field for decades upon decades, and you've seen the transition between the print press where you roll out your newspaper, and it developed to these big digital press,
Right.
and then from black and white to color newspaper. Then from that you
I was the manager of the Chronicle.
yes.
Yeah.
So then you
In
also
the old days when you had to put it all together on a plate.
yeah, and then and
Put
literally roll
the
it up.
letters into the plate, yes.
Right. And then you also witness the advent of social media, and how social media has impacted reporting and how the news is carried and so on. Do you want to share some of that movement through, even if you're going to take us on a historical journey and how you responded to the social media thing?
I was part of a discussion many years ago, in all places, Cyprus, where there was a conference on the computerizing of news and the beginning of social media. And I remember then expressing an opinion which I still hold, that there is a huge danger to society by the development of a means of communication that is unregulated, that can do exactly what it wants, say what it wants, do huge amount of damage by people who are not professionally trained to communicate. And that is what social media has become. In countries like this, social media is a Wild West show. Any idiot can write anything that is idiotic and give it world expression on social media. Once it's put there, it's there for good, unless it's taken down, and even then,
Yeah, if you save it on your phone,
it's still
years
saved.
after you can send it.
So you can't eliminate it, you can't erase it. It is a very dangerous form. What is the fundamental difference between formal media, social media? Formal media, traditional media, is regulated. It is subject to the laws of defamation. It is extremely hard, almost impossible, to sue someone for defamation
Yeah. God, there
in
might
social
be
media.
neither parts of the world making
Exactly.
comments
Yeah, I mean,
specifically directed to
case-
your country.
A good example is Burke in
Yeah,
the
the-
USA.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up next.
yeah, the Chief Justice said you can't solve him outside.
Exactly.
Apart from saying that, there's an issue that the Chief Justice raised that I'd like to have your opinion on. What the Chief Justice said is that the section of the law that says You can criminalize this thing no matter how wrong and how offended you feel. To criminalize it is against the Constitution. If you feel offended, you got to take private action.
Well, in the law, she's right.
Okay. So how do
I'm
we...
not a lawyer, but I would think she's right. And I have a great deal of respect for the Chief Justice. She is, in my view, one of the best judges our country has benefited from.
If your opinion is asked for with respect to confirming her as substantive Chief Justice, what would you tell?
Of course, yes. From what you just said.
It's constitutionally required to be done. It is interesting that neither she nor the Chancellor have been confirmed by many governments, one after the other, including...
But you can't confirm her without the other. It got to be...
You got to do them both. And that may be the challenge.
You did say the operators...
I have to be careful what I say here. I don't have the same admiration
For the Chancellor.
for the Chancellors as I do for the Chief Justice.
Same
That
here.
is not to say that, but they're both not very fine judges. But that's a personal opinion.
I want to push you with this, but if you refuse to be pushed, we move on to Adrian Young. Is the reason for that lesser admiration comparatively is because of the 34-33 controversy? She ruled that 34 is the majority of the...
That is
not 33.
one of the major reasons.
Okay. We asked Christopher and he didn't answer.
He wouldn't.
Adriana Young, was this tragedy politicized, and was there an absence of murder and sacrificial ritual of murdering a little girl, or is that just politicization?
Freddie, that is one of the saddest stories this country has had.
Yes, I think so. An accidental drowning.
The family was manipulated.
Yeah.
They were used for political purpose.
They went along with it.
It is, well, because they didn't understand what was being done to them. And these were people who lost a child. And the police acted extremely badly and fed into the rumor mongering and superstition that came into this event. We've had 3 prominent pathologists, internationally prominent pathologists, examine this. Sadly, they take the body of this poor child to the States to another pathologist of their choice. They get the same result. It is clear to me that what happened is the child was playing in the pool, got into deep water,
and drifted away
and drowned. It happens
all the time.
There have been 3 or 4 drownings in the
by splashman too.
Splashments. 3 or 4 drownings. Nothing has been said about them. It happens. I was the owner and operator of a resort on the river.
Yeah.
And one of my major concerns was when my guests were swimming.
And they're swimming in the river.
Yes. Major concern. I've had 10, 15, 20 people in the water at one time. And I've had my staff sitting on a wave runner, ready to go to anyone who got into trouble. You have to do that. No hotel, and I'm glad to see that that became an issue at the tag dinner last night. No hotel that has a swimming pool, no public place that's hosting guests that has a swimming area should do so without having a lifeguard on duty or some form of major supervision. We tried to do that as best we could at Hurricabra, but I was always worried, always concerned. And I've had near misses in the river. I've had stupid people do stupid things.
Yeah.
We would rent someone a wave runner and they would try and stunt on it, in spite of being told not to do that. Then they would turn over and they're out in the middle of the river and you have to rush to rescue them. But if we hadn't had the facilities for rescuing them, they would have drowned. And that is exactly what's happened. And it was the political parties that did this to Adriana's family should be damned ashamed of themselves. And the lawyers who got involved in it should be ashamed of them too. That's my view.
A quick interjection here. You said the police acted badly. One of the areas they acted badly is in your forte, which is communication. Have they sought any of your advice, or you sought to give them advice?
I was never.
How did you view their
I
public
apologize for this
relations?
bird.
No, that's nice.
That's all right. That's part
nice.
of the thing. How do you view the police public relations during that time?
It was dreadful.
Okay.
The police communication fell to the ground. It didn't exist. And they contributed to the problem.
Kit, the operator signal 3 minutes. 2 quick questions. Well, I'll leave the other question when we close in. Do you see a smooth election or mischief is in the making? Kit, you cannot stop a person. You cannot stop a person from taking a car and driving while on the road. You cannot stop a person from walking on the street and say, look at I'm Indian fool, look at Indian, look at... You can't stop people from doing things. You can't stop people from saying, the wicked election in St. Barnabas School.
Freddie, the signs are there already. The opposition know that they can't win, or they think they cannot win. So they don't want the election to take place. They've already pushing for postponement of the election. They're arguing that DCOM is not ready. They're finding every excuse they can for not contesting the election. And that could lead to trouble. It could lead to public unrest. Because that is one of the means that an opposition can use to postpone an election.
Craig, before we go, quickly.
Yeah. I feel that they're gonna have a smooth election. Quite contrary to some of the others.
They won't.
No. Okay. Well, I don't think the opposition has the
Capacity.
not the capacity. The planning and sequential organizing. But I need to ask you. At 84, which you will be in 4 months.
94.
94. Sorry.
You're taking off 10 years.
My apologies.
That's a funny thing.
I mean, looking at you.
And it's
looking at you.
The man
his man
can't
Freudian
possibly
mind,
be 94.
He know I'm not speaking. He knows he's not speaking to a 94-year-old man. But our time has come. What is quickly?
Yeah. You have seen so many elections pass.
You have to answer that quickly.
How do you view this one compared to all the others you've
Well,
seen?
it has a plethora of presidential candidates. I think it's 28
28.
presidential candidates. I don't even know who half of them are.
We gotta go. We'll end with this. When is this autobiography coming out? And after this interview, can I read the draft?
No, you can't read
The draft, right, fine.
And I can't say when it's coming out.
But there's a draft.
Absolutely, it's up there.
Okay, it's up there. I am going to break into your house tonight. Kit, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
You were
Certainly.
looking at a very absorbing, interesting interview with Kit Nascimento and his adumbrations on the breakup of the friendship with Christopher Ram. It is always interesting having someone of Kit Nascimento's age and the service, the 60th service to Guyana. Thanks for being with us. We will see you on this week with another guest. On behalf of Christopher Kit Nascimento, my co-host Leonard Craig. Catch you later. Bye-bye.